That was Tiny Ocean with Bang Bang, and you're listening to Northern Remedy here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut. This is the episode where we talk about our favorites. Technically, we're talking about our favorite shows of 2018. I'm here with Karen Ponzio, who reports for The Independent more often than I do about live shows in New Haven. Yeah. Oh man, for sure. Yes. So we're here to recap some of like our favorites shows of 2018, which is a great way of talking about just sort of our impressions of the music scene in general and how it's going. So Tiny Ocean is a good place to start because when we did this at the halfway through the year, I had talked about how I had kind of hunted down Tiny Ocean as a band I wanted to see. And then, you know, as it turns out, they put out an album, which they hadn't done yet, and are playing more now, which is really cool.
They played actually like a week after you said that, because I think I messaged you and I'm like, got your wish.
Yeah, totally.
But they played a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. They're starting to sort of come out, and that's kind of a good, that's kind of a cool theme. I think that we'll hear running through a lot of things that we say. But so the reason to talk about Tiny Ocean as one of the best live performers around is because they kind of like really have their act together as a live band.
Right.
They're a new band that sounds like they've been around for a while. Like the material sounds like very lived in already. Like they play with this like real kind of like confidence and assuredness that like is not flashy. It's just like, we know what we're doing here. Like they play like old pros, and like the songs are 20 years old already in a good way.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it all feels like very like lived in, and it's really cool. And so there's still kind of like one of my favorite acts of the year in that regard.
And did you see them live after that? Because
yes.
I did. I wrote about them.
Yeah.
I wrote about them when the album came out.
Right.
That show at Cafe 9. So it was Audio Jane, who just recently came out with their album. They were getting ready to put out an album.
Right.
And then Tiny Ocean and Liz Galorn.
Cool.
And that was a fantastic show at Cafe 9. It was like a Friday night.
Right.
And it was just very powerful. A lot of people, and those songs, they played the entire album.
Yeah.
and the songs translated, so well. Album live. It's like one of those, like, again, a lot of people that don't see a lot of shows are like, do they sound like this live? And am I going to hear the same thing? And some people like it to sound exactly like it is, and some people don't. And I don't know about exactly or not exactly, but just that, like, I was excited to hear those songs both ways. Like, they're just so good.
Yeah.
The lyrics, the music. I really like what Kirsten's doing a lot.
So that said, like, that album does capture what they sound like live.
I think it does. I think it does.
Degree.
I think it absolutely does.
Yeah, like they're fully capable of.
Oh yeah.
Of making that sound.
Oh yeah.
That's very cool.
That's one of the things about them. It's not just like they came out with a great album.
Right.
Like if you go to see them, you're gonna get the whole you can get the whole package.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me more about Audio Jane, actually, which is a band I haven't been able to catch yet, but have meant to.
Excuse me. So Chip McCabe, who works up in Hartford.
They're based in Hartford, right?
Yeah, and he had been at that show too, and I know him from Cygnus and everything too, and he reviews a ton of records and knows a ton. He has been doing this for a long time, and he said that they were one of his favorite bands that he liked to listen to, and from that area, and I was really, when you hear things from certain people, you say like, okay, you say want to trust them, but you do trust some people as opposed to just somebody's opinion, else's opinion, and they were really great. I felt like kind of that same, that similar vibe. Like, of course, I hadn't listened to any of their records yet, but the idea of like a live band that had like a rock and roll feel, like you could say this is like somebody I want to listen to in a bar on a Friday night, but also thoughtful, and their record just came out. I was like, going to that show made me look forward to their record.
Yes.
So that's another thing that I always find, like when people say like the measure of a good, quote unquote, good show or not a good show. If there's somebody you've never seen before, and you go to the show and you're like, they're like, we have a record coming out, or this is off our new record, and you afterwards you're like, I'm going to need to listen to that record. That's what that show did for them.
Yeah, good.
Where I had seen I had seen Tiny Ocean before,
right,
and that record had come out,
yeah,
and so I listened to it some before going there,
right.
But I had already had a flavor for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was a great, and Liz is, not to push Liz aside, definitely not to put Liz aside, but
right.
that triple bill was like 1, 2, 3 punch. That was phenomenal.
Yeah. Nice. So I feel like we have to wait a little bit to talk about the one that sort of ended up on both of our lists. So tell me about another one that you went to that I didn't go to.
Another show that I went to that you didn't go to.
Yes.
Well,
there's so many.
Since we're talking about Cafe 9 on a Friday night.
Yes.
In September, I saw Slim Cessna and Kid Congo.
Oh yeah,
and
nice.
Slim Cessna, people had said to me, and Kid Congo I knew from doing the from DJing there.
Yep.
And he had lived in New Haven and then moved, and then that's what Brendan Toller took over with his Shake and Vibrate on Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew him from that, but I'd never seen his band.
Mm-hmm.
And then people had said to me, you have to see Slim Cessna, you have to see Slim Cessna, you have to see Slim Cessna. So again, when you know people who work in bars and work in clubs and they're like, you have to go see this band, you say, okay. And I wrote about that, and man, what a show that was. We were like, it's September. We were like sweating. They have this whole, they have an album where it's like they go through, like the songs are the 10 Commandments.
Oh, nice.
And they do this whole thing. It's like almost like going to church. Like you go there and it's just this like deep cut rock and roll, dangerous, but with like the religious overtones. And they're coming through the crowd and they're shaking hands with everybody, and people are filming and they're like not pushing their camera away, but they're doing this thing where like they kneel to the ground and you lower to the ground, and when you watch my video from it, you see me like lowering to the ground and like in front of them and coming. Yes. It was such an experience, and that was phenomenal. And then Kid Congo came on and he just shook the place. The place shook.
Yeah.
The floor shook, the wall shook. It was some of the most like as far as like participating in a show. Mm-hmm. And people participating and people getting like super into it, and because of course there were people there who've known them for years. They've been around for years.
Right.
There were people like me who had never. Some people had only seen one band and not the other. They were there for Slim Cessna, or they were there for Kid Congo.
Nice.
And what I kept hearing all night was like, oh my God, I came for so and so, but the other one was amazing too. And
yeah.
Oh, what a night! I'm starting to get warm just thinking about it. It was so hot.
Yeah,
it was so crazy and great, and it's Cafe 9's so good with those kinds of shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to hang outside with Slim Cessna afterwards too, and he was really cool and really nice. So, and they're both really nice. Kid Congo's really nice too.
There's been a bit of a I guess now that I've lived in town for long enough, I feel like there's been a little bit of an uptick in the number of fairly like larger names from out of town that are playing in places like Cafe 9, which is really cool.
Well, yeah, because I know some people are like, Slim Cessna's coming here, and again, I hadn't seen them before. Kid Congo, again, he's been through. He had a show there, regular show there, and everything too.
Right.
But even him, it's like he tours all over the world.
Yes.
He's played with so many different people and toured all over the world, and it's going to stop in New Haven.
Yes.
And you do see a lot of that, and it's coming to the point almost where like people are like, you're saying how many shows I go to, and I do go to a ton of shows. I kind of had a little lull there for a little bit, but I go to a ton of shows, and there are still people who are like, you didn't go to this show, but this is an amazing show. I can't believe these people were in New Haven on like a Wednesday.
Right.
But
yes.
that's the 2018 was that nonstop. I could have gone to 5 shows a week, I think.
Yep.
And yeah, so we're spoiled.
Yes. I mean, this is a good way for me to talk about. No, so this guy isn't like famous is not the right word to describe him exactly, because he's not like a household name. But what he is like he's like kind of a big deal in the music world. This guy is a guitarist named Mark Rebo,
Mm-hmm.
who is he has been around for quite a long time, and the list of people that this man gets to play with is really impressive. Like I think he kind of probably the first thing that people that put him on the map was playing with this guy named John Zorn, who is this huge deal for the jazz scene. And then he played he's like the side man for a whole bunch of Tom Waits' projects starting in the 80s.
All right, yeah.
Like starting in the 80s and forward to the present. And
so
then,
like 30 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like he was a young person when he started doing that. And then when he plays like a jazz festival, he plays for like thousands of people. And he gets flown all over the world to do it. And so you're like he's really a big deal. He has the kind of career that a lot of musicians would kill to have.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still going strong. And he just happened to do a set at Cafe 9 in May.
Right? And that, I'm telling you, that's this year.
Yeah,
that's this
like
year.
instead of like having to pay a lot of money to go see him on a distant stage with thousands of other people, like maybe 75 of us got to cram into Cafe 9 to see him with just a trio playing. And it's one of the few shows in recent memory where he played for quite a long time, and I was like not done. It took he played for 2 hours, and I was I thought like, oh, it's over already. That's too bad. Like how long has it been?
2 hours. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, so the sort of the fun sort of like music nerdy part of it is that because he's really like a guitar guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's his that's what he plays. And he has such a distinctive sound on the guitar that if you looked around in the audience, it was like, of those 75 people, I would guess maybe 50 of them were avid guitar players.
Right.
Like it was like Guitar Player Summit.
Yeah, I've been to a couple. I've been to a couple of those. A couple of the Manic Monday shows have been like that, where there's somebody there and somebody I know will come up and they'll be like, "Have you ever heard this guy play guitar? Like I played and I've been to this." And they start telling you all these things, and then I have to put up my not a musician trademark sign and remind. But again, then once you listen to them, you're like, "Oh, well, yeah." Now I get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's
even though I don't know, I figure it out.
Right. Like, it's fun to be a music nerd about this kind of stuff, but the fact is that, like, all the stuff that music nerds like is probably also the stuff that translates to everybody else anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I mean. So they're asking me if I know them, and I'm like, nope. And then they're telling me all these things, and then by the end of the show, I'm like, well, yeah. Now I get, of course I get it.
Right.
Get caught up in the enthusiasm.
Yes. So that still kind of lingers in my mind as one of the best shows I saw this year. And when I mentioned to, like, I have a friend who lives in Germany who said, I'm going to see Mark Rebo. He's like, he's coming to Cafe 9? That's crazy. Like,
right? And we're like, yes, we have that. We have the musician's living room right down the street from us, and we love it.
Yep. All right, so tell me about another one of yours.
Tell me about another one of yours. So, let's see. I mean, I talked about. Here's another one I'm gonna mention. So we've been talking about Cafe 9. So let's go across town to Three Sheets.
Okay.
So Three Sheets is another very specific. Has a very specific vibe to it. That's pretty unique to it. It has the stage, and everybody's kind of pushed up against it when it's really crowded, and people come in and out of there a lot because it's a bar a lot of people walk to and things like that. So we had in a couple of shows there. We had in July where Sean Bowen came in from California, and it was a Murder Van show. The Murder Van is a band that was around for a long time in New Haven. Whenever Sean comes in, in fact, I think they're playing again in a couple of weeks. He's coming in and they're playing again. And so everybody comes out, and that one happened to be the Rats, which is one of Jeff Thunder's bands, and then the Danglers, which also was like somebody. The lead singer was in from like Georgia or where I can't remember offhand now where he was from. And then Murder Van played, and it was like this night where like all these people came in who hadn't seen each other, and it was like 4th of July weekend type of thing. And everybody played, and it was another one of those real sweaty, cramped up, loud, glasses breaking, earplugs over earplugs, and it's still loud kind of show. And it was phenomenal because it was just friends and, bands that people love and people that people love. And people hanging out that hadn't hung out in a while. And it was just, and Three Sheets is really good for that. I think it's really good. I mean, they had the Rhino album release show, which we talked about at the last time we did this, when Rhino had their record release, and they were with Sean Hendry and Ace Carlson's band there, and they did Night Bloom, and she actually moved too. But they it was another one of the things where it's like a bunch of friends and just a real sweaty rock and roll great time. And then they did that again in November with, I went to other shows there too, of course, but in November with the Fake Four show.
Yes, that was you anticipated my segue, actually.
Oh, we'll see.
Well done.
We're good at that. Yeah. We're getting good at that. 2 years in, and we're just hair flip. But yeah, and then they did the so Sarah Scranton, Lip Gloss Crisis, does her monthly show, which is Art in the Back, Music in the Front, and in November it was the Fake Four 10-year anniversary. So all of the art was Fake Four art.
Fake Four is a record label that's headed by Chesky
and his brother.
And it's been around.
David.
Yeah, David. And it's been around for how long has it been? It's been around for 10 years and counting. Right. Right. I was just thinking, look, these years are starting to bleed together. I was like, has it been 11 already?
Well, they started by, because he wanted to put out a record for David.
Right.
So
exactly.
Even though they weren't necessarily anonymous, like it,
Yeah.
Yeah, they just started to do that, but it went from let's put out David's record to
I have a bunch of other.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, like he's like, the way he's described it to me is that it's just that he just knows a lot of musicians whose music he really likes, and he thinks he can help them out.
And it's the same thing and it's the same thing with the art.
Yeah.
So I did an interview with Chesky before to preview that show, and I know you had done like a Fake Four piece a few years back. So, and the great thing about Chesky is, he just, he's talking about what's coming. He's celebrating what's been, and he's also talking about what's coming up. So, in terms of what the year was like, he played throughout the country, but he played a lot here. He just played the other night at State House again.
Yeah.
But he's been very transparent as far as what 2019 is going to offer. So he's coming out with 2 albums. He's got so much planned, and he's not only grateful for what he had, he's super enthusiastic for 2019. And I have a really good feeling about 2019 for him. I can just
yeah, for sure.
There's such a vibe that 2019 is going to be Chesky's year. And I mean, that show was C.L. Hughes and Kirby Dominant and Gregory Pepper, who was the first time I had seen him, and Sam Carlson had mentioned him as an influence last year when I interviewed him.
Yeah. Right.
And to see him live and to talk to him, he does visual art and music, and he was incredible. And then Anonymous Inc., which hits it out of the park every time. They're just like, how anybody has not New Haven. If you have not seen them, I will die on this hill. Go see Chesky and Anonymous Inc. Just go. I will buy your ticket for you if you want me to.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like they really have an incredible live show.
Talk about interactive.
Yes.
And people singing along, and Chesky down in the audience, and David's drumming. When they play as a band, David as a drummer is incredible as a rapper. They're just yeah. I can't say enough. I could do a whole show. Could do a whole show about them.
No, absolutely. Yeah, he's a bit of a treasure for this town. It's neat that he keeps. It's neat that he always circles back here, considering like how far flung he can get as a touring artist. Like he's going to Europe a lot these days.
Oh yeah, he went to the Galapagos Islands this year.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
come on.
There's something really neat about the way he sort of is always circling back here. I mean, it's it's family, it's friends, but like plenty of people have family and friends here and don't necessarily
It's also
need to circle back.
It's also like I feel like his commitment to his art and to
Yeah.
sharing art, because he is just as enthusiastic about sharing the art that his friends create.
Yeah, for sure.
So he could very easily be, I'm Chesky, and he's so not that.
No,
He's so
no,
not
definitely
that.
not.
And he goes to shows.
Yes.
He goes to other people's shows. It's just it's nonstop, and it's really a credit to him, I think, and to New Haven too. He loves New Haven, and I think New Haven loves him too.
Yeah, right back. Let's actually hear something from him.
Yes.
So this is a Choke Parade from Broken Bone Ballads, which is it's only just a couple years old, really.
2015, I think.
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah, I think so too. But here it is.
Barely noticed puberty as hair grew subtly until my virgin flesh permanently burning away at my baby fat chest. Chesky, the stretch marks from when you were 16 are still there to tell you that you're going nowhere. Fast at least, no masterpiece will last a week while giants and dragons jump into the canvas sheet. How you gonna prove you're not another sucker with a dream living under your grandpa's roof in a room with your brother? All of us wanna be someone better until the moment when the ominous comes and just stomps on our festival. It's a rainy day, plain and gray in Connecticut, with a saving grace to take us away. It is just one quick moment for the parade to arrive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. One quick moment for the parade to arrive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. Helium-filled monstrosities wave in the wind above a cheering crowd that's tearing down our city simply with the blaring sound of oohs and ahs and huge applause as people scurried to catch a glimpse of balloons and fog. Everybody in LA was looking for a lucky break when all I really wanted was to get out of that place. I never wanted to be that big blimp in a parade that just sits in deep haze waiting for the day that it deflates. One quick moment till the parade comes alive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. One quick moment till the parade comes alive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. Then we'll chuckle and sink like after snarf jokes of Thundercats episodes. We'll reminisce about bull we walked through on this wretched road. It was a mess, I know, tough to pass the test of growth, but we never let those foes question our endless sense of hope. This is a song for all my friends trying to live off music, a song for my people who are told every day that they'll never do it. And even though we'll all wind up in space under graves, at least we kept our legs strong, moving along the whole way. Wait one moment for the parade to arrive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. Wait one moment for the parade to arrive. In just one moment, all the floats will choke the sky. Choke the sky, choke the sky. All the floats will choke the sky. Choke the sky, choke the sky. All the floats will choke the sky. Choke the sky, choke the sky. All the floats will choke the sky. Choke the sky, choke the sky. All the floats will choke the sky.
That was Chesky with Choke Parade off of Broken Bone Ballads. And you're listening to Northern Remedy, the show dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future, here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut. I'm here with Karen Ponzio, who reports for The Independent on the music scene, among other things. And we're talking about the shows that stand out in our minds for 2018. And we have a lot to choose from. But we started off by talking about Chesky as an artist, but also as an audience member, because he goes to a lot of shows when he's in town. And this was a great way to say that one of the shows that I saw him at was So I had this insane idea as a reporter when just after the State House opened. It occurred to me that I might be able to cover 2 shows at once because Cafe 9 and the State House are like 100 yards from each other?
Pretty much.
Like no more than that.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, it occurred to me.
Literally around the corner.
Yeah, it was like I'm gonna have like it'll take me about 3 minutes to get from one to the other, and theoretically I can cover 2 shows at once, and I can see what that feels like. Also, like as a music fan too. So that night, Cafe 9, the bill there was, I have to get all these names straight. So the headliner was a band called A Hawk and a Hacksaw, which I'll talk about in a minute. Ellison Jackson, which to New Haven music fans is a familiar name. There's there's sort of a great sort of I guess I would call them an Americana band. They're they have a very sort of like they have a sort of electrified Dylan-ish sound to them.
Lyrically strong, but can get kind of jammy when they want to as well.
Yeah.
And then Sam does his own acoustic thing a lot of times, and it's just as amazing. Yeah.
And then opening, there was a 3-band bill. So opening for them was this band called Lil Sluggers, which I'd never heard before, but that had the kind of eclectic instrumentation that I like. There was like a violin, there's an accordion, there's a guitar, there's all this stuff. And they are out of Hartford, if I remember right. If I got that wrong, please send me an angry email. But so they were great. I mean, so what I liked about it was that this was a sort of in sort of good New Haven fashion. This was a kind of like a bill where the bands in some ways didn't have much to do with each other sonically, but did have a lot to do with each other kind of in the spirit that they were playing music. Like they were all very like they all kind of like go for it in a way that I like bands to go for it. And one of the experiments that I wanted to know was with 2 venues so close to each other, would one of them have a small audience, the other one have a big audience? Or is there enough of an audience to go around? In a town of this size, especially because it happened to be a Monday.
It was a Monday, and it was Indigenous Peoples Day. Right.
So you kind of go like, what's going to happen here? Is it going to be that like one siphons an audience off of the other one? What happens?
Right.
So at Cafe 9, it followed the kind of cool, predictable, in a good way, pattern of Cafe 9's audience, is that it tends to get bigger as it gets later. That's like the general thing. So by the time Ellison Jackson was on, the audience was significantly bigger, and only getting bigger for the headliner, which I guess I will describe now. There's so the band A Hawk and a Hacksaw, the way that they market themselves is pretty cool, because the guy in A Hawk, it's a duo, and the guy in A Hawk and a Hacksaw was in the band Neutral Milk Hotel, which is sort of like a big icon for indie rock folks. But that said, since that time, like he was the drummer in that band, and since that time he has taken this like super deep dive into like Eastern European and Middle Eastern music, which is now like what that project plays. And there's something I loved about the fact that he kind of marketed himself as an indie rock guy and was like, guess what? You're going to hear a bunch of like Bulgarian music now. Deal with it. And the thing that was, and the thing that was great is that people really did like it. Like people stuck around. They were like bobbing their heads. They were doing the thing that people do when they're listening to any music. Right. And it occurred to me how cool it was that this slight, you could have accused him of pulling a sort of bait and switch on the audience, but it worked. Right. Like people were there to see him, but they stayed for what they were hearing. And so that was super cool. And a really good sense, it gives you a good sense of like why people go out to hear music. Like they're there to hear something new. They're there to hear something that they don't get to hear all the time, whatever it is. But in between those sets, I ran over. I can tell
my story of what Brian did to me over at State, which is not a bad thing.
So in between those sets, I ran over to the State House, which you should describe because you were there the whole time.
Right. So what happened is I did a preview of the show at the State House that was happening that night,
Right.
which I had interviewed Rick Amante, who had booked the show.
Right.
And then I had interviewed Jocelyn Pleasant from the Lost Tribe. And then I had interviewed Jose Abinez from, I'm going to say, I hope I say it, Orquestra Macabeo.
Yeah.
Macabeo.
Orquesta El Macabeo.
El Macabeo.
Yeah.
I usually just say Macabeo, or they say Macabeo, so I want to make sure I say the whole thing.
We'll
so
stick
people,
with Macabeo from now on.
Yeah, so people can look them up because
They're a great
spoiler alert, that is my show of the year. That night was amazing, but I had previewed the show, and then I had spent, I talked to Macabeo had been on tour for their 10-year anniversary, and I had spoken to Jose from before his show in Chicago or somewhere in the Midwest, and he was so pleasant and so lovely. And I had seen the Lost Tribe before and written about them before. They were having a pop-up for food, and it was just the Indigenous Peoples Day is, a new thing with Columbus Day, not brand new, but something that's been coming to fruition more. And I was like, I need to go to this show.
And one that, to its credit, New Haven as a city seems to be managing with a great deal of finesse and understanding.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I was like, I need to go to this show. I really want to go to this show, even though I, quote unquote, didn't have to because I previewed the show.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to go. And so I go there and I walk in and people are like, are you covering the show? I'm like, no, I did a preview. We're not covering the show. And then walks Brian with his camera and his pad. And he's like, hey, guess what I'm doing? And we had some food, but it was great because
I almost forgot about the food.
We had food and there was, I danced, and I'm telling you, I was so glad I didn't have to write about that show because I danced the lead singer of Macabeo thanked me afterwards for dancing the whole show.
Yeah.
And again, that show ended and they kept, and I was like, I could have danced all night. I could have.
Yes.
Oh, what a show.
Yeah.
What energy, what enthusiasm. There were people that I saw there that I have not seen out ever, and not that I'm keeping a list, but you just know who you see. There are people I see all the time, but there were people I haven't seen, and people were coming up to me going, have you been here? Isn't this great? Have you seen these bands before?
Yes.
And I was like, I say I've seen Lost Tribe, haven't seen the other, and that was the second time they were there that year, because they played at the Grove before the State House opened,
right,
3 months before, 2 months before, something like that.
Totally.
Yep.
And sort of, I mean, most important from what we're sort of both talking about here is that both crowds at both places were quite healthy.
Oh, yeah. I didn't go to Cafe
cool.
9, but there were people who also came over and were like, I was just at Cafe 9 or I'm going to Cafe 9. So it wasn't just Brian, everyone. It was other people too. It was other people too. And I was like, and then when he came over, I'm like, this is what's happening. It's, he kind of proved your point that it could it happen? Could it happen? Will it happen? Yes.
To the point where, those of I ran into a couple other people who had done this, to the point where we started talking about how we started telling them how to run their business, of course, because we're jerks. So it was like, we're like, what they should really do? They should coordinate their set time so that people can go back and forth. Now, technically, that's a great idea. Of course, it will never happen and shouldn't.
Yeah, I have no comment. I didn't tell anybody what to do.
It was more of a mark of our enthusiasm. What was really cool about it is that you could really catch a lot of both shows because they were so close to one another. I didn't feel like I had. I mean, obviously there are beginnings and ends of sets that I missed, but I never felt like I didn't get a sense of what the band was about. And I felt
I almost ran over too. I ended up not running over because I was talking to so many people that then the set started. I'm like, I wasn't going to leave in the middle of a set for that. So.
Right. And that's telling you something about the way that, I remember coming away from that night thinking, the if you were in the economic development department of the city, after seeing a night like that, you would be saying, what we need is even more things in a greater concentration. It's like the only thing that would be better is if there were 3 more clubs on Crown Street right around the corner and some restaurants being open and more the idea that two clubs can be operating that close together and both be doing well is a sign that, you know, if you drew the supply demand curve for it, like supply has not yet quite met demand. And that was a kind of cool, that was a cool thing to see, you know. That, I mean, obviously you want to go to more than one show to show that, but you know, I was kind of half expecting that one of them would be empty and one of them would be full, and nope.
But there's also, and this is what I've talked to people. So now I interviewed Los back in June, and they had wanted to open. They were hoping to open by the end of June, beginning of July, and then it ended up being September. They still had all the shows at the Grove, you know. But one of the things he talked about was the idea of, you know, the adding to the community,
right?
You know,
yeah,
and,
it's totally
you know,
worth mentioning that like Carlos had done his homework.
Oh, and, this place,
you know, it was all very like, and like it sounded to me like Paul Mayer at Cafe 9 was like delighted for him and excited about the whole thing. But there was never any sense of competition.
No, and I think people, you know, and
which is a really important point to make.
It's a very important. It's a very important point to make. And what I will talk about is, because I'm out a lot. I don't say a lot more than Brian, but I am out a lot more than Brian, generally speaking. Where I'm in the crowd, I'm not. You know, you perform. I'm not performing. I'm usually there in the crowd, and that's one of the biggest questions I got all year was, when is the State House opening? What are they going to do? What's it going to be like? And then once it opened, had you been there yet? Because then it opened and I didn't get there for a couple of weeks. I didn't go to any of the Grove shows. I just happened to miss the ones at the Grove, so I never got to see any of those. But we're talking specifically about
those were good,
which were phenomenal. I heard nothing but good things. I just happened to not make them because I was either working another show or doing something else where I couldn't make it. But speaking of the State House specifically, since it's open, you know, people were getting some people were getting nervous about a couple of things, like, oh, another club, and some people were like, well, when's it going to open? I just want to be there. And in general, I think it was just one of those, like I told you about, like this kind of childlike wonder. You know, nothing was in a negative frame. Like I almost felt like I had to keep telling, like, you know, when you have kids and you keep telling them, like, you know, Santa will be here soon, or, you know, we'll get to the store, or you'll get a snack soon. It's like almost one of those things you had to say to people, it's okay. It'll all be okay. Like, and maybe I'm spoiled in the sense that I had such a great understanding of it from interviewing Los. I mean, that interview came out. I gave that interview to the world. But I just had such confidence that this was going to be a wonderful thing for New Haven. Yes. And I would tell people similar things. I'd say,
I remember feeling the same way.
More music. This is another place for people to perform. This is more music. The goal for this place is to have another place, not just for local people, but for people to come in a bigger venue, more, you know, say more room, but just a different type of venue. Because I tell people when they ask me about it, I say it's not a bar you see music at. It's a venue that you can have a drink in.
Yes. I feel that way too. Which
is different, and it's nothing against the bars. It's just
but it's not
different.
It's not a bar.
It is not a bar.
No.
It is just different, and it's the sound is great, and the first band I saw there was a hardcore punk show there. Right. 3 hardcore bands, and I was, you know, that was going to be the test for the sound, because it was like, if those shows are loud. Yeah. And was it loud? Yeah, but was the sound great? The sound was phenomenal.
Yes, I having played there as well. Like the sound is great.
You played there, yeah.
The sound is great in the audience, and it's also like on stage. It was really, really, really pleasant to play there.
Yeah. So again, you have
and it's not a knock on everybody else. It's more like whoever designed it did a phenomenal job of putting that place together.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like I said, I'm talking from terms of like reassuring like a child or something like that, which no offense to anybody, but in those terms of like, it's going to be great. Yeah. I knew it was going to be great, and it is great. Yeah. And New Haven is, you know, just another wonderful place to go. Yeah.
More options. I mean, in some ways, if you were talking about it, like the story of this State House being put together is very much like a good 2018 story about how it goes from being, planning and zoning meetings to to a fully functioning venue by the end of the year with quite a track record already.
Oh god, yeah. The
Yeah.
shows I went to 2 shows in November there that were both phenomenal. And yeah, the other thing is that Los gave me a quote that is maybe my favorite quote of the year of anybody.
Which is,
And it's the quote when he said, "You don't have to tear something down to build something up."
yeah,
And that's I took it personally, literally and figuratively. So it was to me it's a great 2018 quote because he took a place that was sitting there. They took him and it wasn't just him, but they took a place that was sitting there and made it into another place.
right.
And it's great.
Yes.
He didn't have to completely level a building to get something else. He just took something and made it into something that they wanted. But also just the general aesthetic of 2018, and it's been another rough year, generally speaking. When you even go beyond going beyond music, so people go to, people. One of the reasons you go out, not say is to get away from it all, but it's art, music, poetry, any type of art you go to get another perspective and to get kind of a respite from things, and you don't have to be like, that band sucks, go see this one. There's so much out there.
Yeah.
You don't have to, if you don't like this certain kind of music, guess what? You don't have to go there and listen to it. You can go to this other place and listen to it. I mean, look at Manic.
Like every night. Every night there's a few other things you can go look at.
And Manic Monday, it's good to mention. I mean, those shows, the other thing I think about those Manic Monday shows is that if you go online and get your ticket before 2, it's free. Before 2, the day of the show, you can get into that show for free.
Yeah.
If not, it's $5. I know a lot of people who will sign up for the show and give it a shot. They don't even know, or they know one person and they don't know it. So there are a lot of people who can walk in, like you just talked about, walk into the show and these bands throw something out that maybe people weren't prepared for, didn't know it was going to happen. And they look at it and go, okay.
Yes. Well, then, and having covered several Manic Monday shows,
me too. Yep.
Over the years now, it's been running for a few years, hasn't it?
It started last year on Labor Day.
Yeah.
Because Laundry
feels
Day,
like forever.
I was at that show.
Yeah.
Naturally.
But it's like the constant refrain you hear from like the touring bands that play that are just like, wow, Monday night.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of people there. You think they're always like pleasantly surprised by how many people have shown up to see them.
And it's always like this nice. It's a nice way to start your week. I think it's, and even I've done that with Tuesday shows there. I can't tell you how many Tuesday Cafe 9 shows I've been at where people are like, wow, thanks for like coming to a show on a Tuesday. Wow. They're shocked themselves that people came to see them. It's kind of awesome,
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I think about that a lot too, that I don't think it's escapism to be going to the shows. I think it's like it's more like I always feel rejuvenated because it's a reminder that there's like a real community around you. Yes. You can read the paper and especially like national level news and be pretty depressed about it and feel like things aren't going very well. And then it helps to know that like, and yet 3 hours later I'm here in a room where people are just enjoying themselves and we're all together and it's all communal, and that's like, I think that really matters.
It does really matter, and I think a lot of
perspective
artists,
on the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of more artists than not mention something that's going on. So it's not like it's definitely not escapism in that sense that
it's not like forget about your sorrow. That's not what's going on.
Yet there is, you can go in with like-minded people because the people there want to hear music.
Right.
People are there because they want to hear music. I mean, there are sometimes it's at a bar and people are there to drink mostly and they know music is going on, but most people are there to hear music. So you're with a like-minded group of people.
Yeah.
And you're not getting away from it all, but you're going somewhere where you're with people who are of the same mindset of, this is where I want to be.
Right.
So, yeah.
Speaking of taking a chance, I do want to put in this one show that you'll remember because I essentially blogged it to you while I was at it. Like I just
Yes, you did. It's pretty awesome.
So, this was a Cafe 9, and the opener was a band called Shy, which is like a new, and I had gone there because Shy is like a new performer in New Haven, and I wanted to check her out.
She played a show that I booked at Cafe 9. Yeah, I know Shy. She's great. Yep.
Yes.
And now she has a band. She was playing solo when I booked her.
And she had a band.
And now Shy is a 3-piece band.
Right. And I wanted to hear the 3-piece band. Yes. And I just wanted to check it out. And they were great. They were really good.
Yeah, she's really good. They have an album coming out next year.
Of course
with
they
Sam.
do.
Sam's recording it.
There you go.
Sans serif. It all interwoven.
No, there you go. I mean, and like that's something to look forward to. Like she was really good. And I sort of felt like, okay, I got what I came here for.
Right.
Like as a journalist, But of course, like I'm gonna stick around for the next one. And the next one was this band it was a band called Karen Meat. And
and yes, he did buy me a shirt.
It was
I have a Karen Meat shirt.
So the band was from the Midwest, and there's a way to I feel like I need to preface this a little bit because I feel like there's this when a band decides that it's going to do something weird. My experience is that like bands from the coasts, when they are weird, like they're weird in ways that you feel like you can trace the lineage of their weirdness. There's something. It's not like it's not that it's put on or that it's studied or anything like that, but that there's it's that like you can kind of see where they came up with what they came up with. There's ways of being weird that we've sort of, half seen before. And like that's cool. But it's also like, well, okay, I get what I'm seeing here. My experience of like weird bands from like the middle of the country is that there's this brief moment where I just think like I have no idea how you came up with this thing that you're doing. And it's like it's wonderfully bewildering. It's only happened to me a couple of times. But like the example of a band like that's kind of made it big would be like the Flaming Lips, where there's just something like there's something like really originally strange about that band. Like there's a little bit of Beatles, there's some psychedelia, there's this, but there's still something going on with that band where you're like, what? Like, how did you come up with this thing? So this band Karen Meat was a duo, and it was just a singer and a guy playing guitar. And they were in these kind of like cartoony outfits, and they played like backup tracks from the singer's phone, and then she sang in this kind of like very like emotionally detached way while he played whatever guitar things needed getting done. And then meanwhile, while they were doing this, so there was nothing on the stage but the two of them. So that they would use the entire stage to do these like sort of like slow motion acrobatic moves. Like they'd be climbing all over each other while they were doing their thing. Like she'd be lying on the floor and he'd be standing over her, and then he'd lie on the floor and she'd like stand on his stomach. And then there was this moment where I'll like, on my deathbed I may tell somebody this that she like laid down on the stage and opened her mouth, and he bent over her and took like a swig of whatever he was drinking and just opened his mouth, and the contents of his mouth like streamed into her mouth without there's no, they worked on it is the way to put it. Like you imagine the practice sessions where like it went all over her face or that it misses all together, but they figured out how to do this. And that was the point where I was like, you guys have figured out this really bizarre mode of entertainment where there's there's this like I can't believe what I'm seeing, and it was like really, really fun. It was so fun.
Well, Karen, they're doing this. Karen, they're doing that. So I had
I just remember writing the article.
I'm there.
I just remember writing the article being like, and then they, and then he, and then she, and then they.
You're like, if I was this is kind of like live blogging, isn't it? I'm kind of writing the article now, and I'm like, you kind of are, and I'm kind of excited. Do they have a shirt? And he's like, you want one? I'm like, yes, of course, because I feel like I was there, and my name is Karen.
But that's a great example of me just seeing the name Karen Meat on a bill and being like, who knows?
Yes.
Who knows what this is going to
Why
be
not?
like, and then just being so amply rewarded.
Yeah.
For having shown up for something. It restored my faith in, like, I mean, I've never, I don't feel like I've ever forgotten to do that, but it restored my faith in doing that more often, of, you know, going, sometimes you just have to go and roll the dice and see what you get, because when it works, it works stunningly well.
Well, yeah, and I've had people say that to me, like you're going to that show, or you went to that show, and it's like, yeah, people I think I've talked about on here before, where people will say that to me about like some of the metal shows or the noise shows or the punk shows, and they'll be like, who are you going, who'd you go see last night? Sperm Donor. And if they don't know who that is, they'll look at me and be like, what? Like,
Yeah.
that's a band? I mean, if you're in New Haven, of course you know who Sperm Donor is.
Right.
But if you're not somebody who goes to shows in New Haven, and you don't follow music in New Haven, and you don't know who they are, you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I like to see everything. I like to try every style of music. And you know what? Again, speaking of them, I went to go see them at the, I didn't write about it, but I went to go see Sperm Donor, and they were with the Hulls and Bill Dratt at State House, because I wanted to go to a show that I knew the music would be. I know who they are, and I wanted that.
Right.
So I know when I want, when you want your acoustic folky, and when you want to dance, and when you want it. And sometimes you don't know, you see a name or you hear a blip of a song and you go,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I did that for 3 years before I did this job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it worked out really well.
Right. So now that we've talked about like weird plus State House plus some local things, I think that we should talk a little bit about the noise scene here.
Booming.
Yes. Because that's
Booming.
another, if we think about 2018 as being like, some of the stories of 2018, one of them is about the State House, opening its doors. And, one of them is about sort of like more, more established names coming to town. And then another one is about, in my opinion, the sort of, emergence of New Haven's noise scene, which I think is, to some extent, like the people in it have been doing it for a long time. Like it's not like it's not like suddenly 20 people showed up in town and started doing something. But
No.
there is a way that it seems to be kind of moving more into the spotlight than it used to be. And that part is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who are like kind of the people that you, I don't want to say always see, but the people who are really booking the shows. I mean, Connor Pearl has just, from Human Flourishing is one of the, I interviewed him, and he has like 7 or 8
right.
acts going at this point. Plus sometimes he just plays alone, and he's phenomenal just on his acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
But then he gets down with the pedals, and he gets down with, more
Yes.
guitar and pedals, and then he's doing all
Right.
these other things. And he did the Noise Fest this year with Drink Deeply with Margaret Milano.
Right.
He took over from Mike Miglietta, and
and Connor is also like the long running Uncertainty music series,
yes,
which Carl Testa had run.
right.
He decided he was just kind of done doing it, and I'm not sure that Connor missed a month. Like it was
No,
it
I
was
don't
like
think
Carl
he did, because
announced that he didn't want
I
to.
write about that?
Yeah,
I wrote about
like
that.
Carl announced that he didn't want to run the series anymore, and people said hooray, like good run,
Right.
and that was great. And then sort of like the next month, I mean, if it wasn't a month, it was maybe 2 months. I mean, it couldn't have been more than
No,
that.
it was. I believe it was because I wrote about that.
Yeah, it was.
I wrote
it
about
was
the
as
last
if
one,
the series never
And then I wrote
ended.
about
And it, like, all it was like, Connor just sort of like, it was almost like, there's a bus moving, and like Carl finds a way to gracefully jump out the back and Connor's in the driver's seat and the bus is still moving.
February, I
was
wrote
really
about
cool.
that because it was the Spookfish, Human Flourishing. That was a really good show.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I had written about the last one that Carl did. So it was like this very short hop, skip, and jump. But that's also the beauty of those shows, because it seems like a lot. I don't want to use the phrase thrown together, but they very quickly will put together act shows. I think that's why, again, he has like 7 or 8 bands, because somebody will be with somebody else or talk to somebody else and say, let's do something together. And they just do it. They don't procrastinate.
Yes.
They just love doing it, and they have fun doing it, and they show up and they do it, and it's great if that's what you like. And if it's not what you like, or if you're not sure if you like it, I definitely recommend, like, Noise Fest is over, but the shows, there's always something. There seems like every week there's at least one, if not 2. Some going on somewhere. Never Ending Books, absolutely. Best Video has had them. Light Upon Blight, which is Jeff Cedrone and a host of other people, including Brian, will do shows at Best Video. Firehouse, they have their annual show at Firehouse, which I did not get to Firehouse. I couldn't make that. I was a little upset, but I had something I could not miss. But I mean, though, doing the shows along with the movies, that one they did in October, Faust.
Yeah.
I always see, when you read it, you don't have to worry about mispronouncing it, but when you're on the radio, you do.
It's because I say Faust all the time.
You just every day.
Exactly.
Faustian every day.
Instead
all day
of swearing, I say, "Oh, Faust."
I might start doing that in 2019. Man, that one, I went to that like as a fan, and I started like writing and drawing during that. That was very provocative.
Yeah.
The music, and I've reviewed other ones.
That was a great idea of Jeff's. Now, I should say, like, I feel like I was a bit player in this. He has an established band.
Right.
And my guess is honestly that their usual bass player like couldn't make it for some reason, or just didn't want to do it, or who knows. And so he was like, "You want to play bass?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they kind of have their thing down. Like me jumping in there to play bass was not like, it was obvious that I was like joining something that was already running quite nicely. You know what I mean?
But it's still improv, and it's still noise, quote unquote,
like they have
type of thing.
They've been playing together. They've been playing together enough that they have like a lot of trust in each other.
Right.
And they go with each other's ideas, and they're not worried about like making transitions from one thing to another thing. Like they obviously have like a lot of like shared experience playing together already, and it's paying off.
And when they do this movie, when they do the ones with the movies, they watch the movie like once, because like I because I've done a couple of them earlier in the year. I did the Burroughs one, which was what, Naked Lunch, and they had they had the movie playing, and they're kind of doing the soundtrack to it, and it's like, they did that Carnival of Souls last year for Halloween. That was the October one last year.
Right.
And that again also was like, whoa. It's like, wow. And I'd never seen that one. I had seen Naked Lunch before. And I hadn't seen the Faust one. And I was like, this is quite provocative. It really is a testament, not just to them as musicians, but to the importance of music, or how music can be along with film.
For sure. And, speaking about like the noise scene more generally, I think like, say like 2 years ago, if someone had said, what's the noise scene like in New Haven? I would have said it is strong and it's robust, but I also would have said it is centered around Firehouse 12 as that's the place that's it's offering a stage for it, and a beautiful stage at that. And, it's bringing in people from out of town, and it's nurturing the local music scene. But I would have said like, that's kind of like the epicenter of the thing. And, to some extent that's still very much true. It's not, it's doing as well as ever.
Right.
As far,
to
all outward appearances, Firehouse 12 is still moving along at the wonderful pace that it had before. And it's still doing all of those things that I described. But I wouldn't describe it as being like the only place where that happens anymore. it's
definitely not. No.
it's not just that it happens at Firehouse 12, and also like some basement shows. It's like that Noise Fest kind of happened in like clubs across the city.
Yeah, with State House, Best Video,
Yeah,
and they've done Cafe 9. They've done, it's everywhere.
Like that, the noise shows are kind of like just kind of part of New Haven's general booking thing. Does feel a little bit new to me, and it's something that a couple of the people in the noise scene have commented on as well. That they're like, this feels different now, and it feels more like, I mean, legitimate is not the right word, but it's more like it's something has happened where like suddenly it seems to be fine to be booking like a noise show at a club.
Yeah. Counterweight has had a couple of them.
Yeah.
More than one. Well, of course, Mike is there too, but yeah, they've had a couple shows. I mean, it's just.
But it's not just one person's decision either.
No.
Like, clearly, like Mike could have said to the other guys at Counterweight, "Hey, can I do a noise this year?" And then they go, "No."
Right. There's just
Instead
there's
they said,
so many
yeah,
of
that
them.
sounds good.
And it's great. I think it's great. I like the idea of it, of the experimental. Yeah, they're always fun. I always enjoy them when I go to them.
Yes. Here's a good way to segue to that we wanted to talk about Adam Matlock.
Oh yeah.
See?
Adam.
I had a plan. I had a plan from the beginning. So the disclaimer is that I play with Adam somewhere between occasionally and regularly in a couple of different things. But that is not what we're here to talk about regarding Adam. The fact that I play with him semi-regularly, he plays with everybody semi-regularly. He does a lot of stuff around town.
Right.
In addition to being a music teacher. And he's also become quite prolific he puts out recordings of things like more and more often. But as a performer, he's one of those people who will be at Cafe 9 one week, and he'll be playing a basement show another week, and then he'll be part of an ensemble playing at Firehouse 12, and the month after that, and then he's playing something out of town, and he's going here and he's going there. But I would like you to talk about his live shows in particular.
So back in the beginning of the year, he did a show at Cafe 9. Here it is in March. So he played, that one was as An Historic.
Yes, which is his songwriting project.
Which is his yeah. And he came out with an EP.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Sam Moth also played, The Lost Tribe also played, but that was his like EP release show.
Yeah.
And he has this, lovely EP. He comes out with, a hard copy, and there's a picture in it that he took, and everyone has like its own unique photo. And then, there's a folded up lyric sheet in it, and his lyrics are gorgeous. Again, as a writer, as a poet, and Brian and I have talked about this. I talk about this to everybody who will listen to me. I'm old. I used to lie on my bed and look at albums and read the liner notes. And if there was lyrics in them, and there used to be a magazine out that had song lyrics, and
right.
I would pore over that. And he's somebody who creates, not only if he never spoke or sang a word, he's a fantastic musician.
Yes.
Add into that the lyrics that he writes and the songs that he writes, and they are absolutely gorgeous, lyrically stunning. You could just read the lyrics and feel like you're reading poetry, reading a story. You want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see him play, it's like you almost like can't. I also feel like he's like, I want to say unique to New Haven, but if I had to kind of define New Haven and its sounds, I would probably mention Adam, tell people go see Adam as An Historic. It's a very unique project, but not so much unique that, he's playing an accordion and who plays an accordion. I've seen other people play accordions. It's not like he's the only person who plays one. Maybe other people don't see that around, but it's what he does with it.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And it's the beauty, his voice, the lyrics. He's the whole package.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to these shows and you sit there and the accordion comes in and you're like, oh, And then you listen to him sing, and you're like, oh. And, okay, maybe that's me. Maybe no, Brian's not doing that. But I am completely mesmerized by it. I have not played with him, but we did the Finnegan's Wake project together.
Oh, right.
You know, which we didn't do together per se, but he did a piece for that. I did a piece for that. Connor did a piece for that. And Liz Galore did a piece for that. And I was like, what? Like, why am I doing this? Well, Pat Dalton helped me with mine for the music end of it. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not a musician. And all three of them were like, what does that mean? What's a musician? You're fine.
Yes.
You know, because we were all just fans of that. And, you know, again, he took a piece of Finnegan's Wake and made it a song.
Yep.
Come on.
Yep.
Come on, guys. Finnegan's Wake, Joyce. Let's talk. So yeah, he's another person that I would say very another person if you're looking for, if you're looking for recommendations of who to come see down in New Haven. I mean, I'm going to say just go to everything or go to as many things as you can, but I would recommend Adam. You're never going to go see him play, hear him, whether it's in Dr. Caterwauls or on his own or whatever. How many things did he come out with this year?
More than I can count.
More than we have track could keep track of. We would have to go back and look.
He has I would the two words that went into my head were both endearing and maddening. but it's he has this idea of like when he's making one thing, it's under one name or another.
Right.
I don't know how many names he has exactly, which is
that's what I'm saying. So
yeah. Because he tends to work in different genres and then use different names for the things in different genres.
And they're all unique and they're all
great.
So
I have trouble keeping track of.
Yeah, they're all interesting.
Yeah,
it's not just like, oh, Adam came out with another CD. It's like Adam came out with more music.
Yeah, they're always very different.
What did he do
from
now?
Another.
You get all excited. Yes, totally. I do anyway.
So let's hear from An Historic, playing a song called Celsa's Brood, which is off of the EP that Karen mentioned called Something
one of my
We Could
favorites
Never Live
of this
Without.
year.
When you told him we all get a little sick sometimes, you held him tight, and you hoped that he couldn't feel the way your heart was racing as you lied. When you filled his little head with all the kindest thoughts you could conceive, you were trying to throw a cushion where you thought that he would land when you leave. Then the day came so quickly, and he still wears the brood. The impact took the wind from his lungs. I know you wouldn't have chose this. You wouldn't have chose this if it were up to you. There's an hour dedicated to the art of leaving with no once you gave him. Book where aliens had eaten all diseases we know. And that night he strained his neck watching for signs of life above and below. Then the preacher spoke of Job and he listened, didn't hear. He had nothing to offer but his soul. You know he would have sold it, given the shirt from his back. He would have sold it if it were up to him.
That was Anastoric with Celsius Brood, and you're listening to Northern Remedy here on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, the show dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future. I'm here with Karen Ponzio. Hey, Karen.
Hi, Brian.
We're doing a recap of sort of our shows that stuck out in our minds this year. Are they the best? Well, we missed the best show, for all we know.
I was told by quite a few people that I missed the best. You should have went to that one. That was the best.
Yes. So, but
maybe I did.
You know, the ones that we managed to get to, the best shows of 2018. So we talked about how there are themes to the year. You know, what is the opening of the State House? What is the emergence of the noise scene? And one that both of us saw also was the. How do you put this? It's not so much that it's like, hey, there's suddenly a bunch of female musicians around. It's not that. It's more that I think it occurred to both of us that there are a lot of bands out there now that are either women fronted or all women, and to the point where it's like I should undermine everything that I just said, because to the point where it's not like a big deal.
Because there's always this.
It is not a big deal.
Right, because maybe not necessarily in New Haven, but if you go on social media or you talk to people about music, a lot of times you hear about this, women in rock shows or women shows for women about women. I mean, and things like that. And people have different opinions about them. And I was involved in one of the Art in the Back shows I hosted, and it was Strong Women in History, and the art was focused on women in history, so it was focused on that. And there were two female fronted bands that played,
which is obviously also a great idea.
Right. Oh, it was phenomenal. It was such a good show. The art was amazing. The music was amazing. But that being said, we're so fortunate in New Haven because you hear a lot of you read a lot of these things online and see people like, how come, why is there all dudes? Yeah. In New Haven, you don't have to do that. I feel like we have that. I mean, we have Danny Capalbo, who was in Quiet Giant and now is doing her solo thing. And I saw her doing her Danny Probably solo thing on a Monday night at Cafe 9. Yeah. And it was like her first night kind of doing that. And it was phenomenal. It was her and her guitar and her pedal board, and she was great. And she's played she's played since then, and I've seen her since then, and it's great. And there was a Glam Bat that I mentioned, that strong women show. It was Emily Rose, and she's played with 6 people on her own with 2 people. These are some strong songwriters.
This Tiny Ocean, and we started the set that we started
Audio
the show
Jane,
with.
Liz Galorn, Ponybird. Latunda came out with an album this year, and that's Chris Santala, who has played with numerous acts and has played alone or solo. Has played done jazz standards.
Right.
I mean everything. We are
there's
just
Shy, Moonshaw, Denise Renee. I can keep going.
It's and that's that's what I'm talking about. Lost Tribe, Jocelyn Pleasant,
absolutely
fronts that. She is phenomenal. As a performer, her in the community, and she's more up in Hartford way, but coming down here more. Like we could sit here and do a whole show like about that. So that's kind of my point. Is not to say look, there's women. It's to say, well, yeah. And that's one of the great things about New Haven. Yeah. Is that you don't have to hunt down those acts. It's just a part of the fabric all the time. There's always somebody here.
That's how I feel also.
You don't have to say, well, I'm looking for female fronted acts, or I'm looking for women's voice, listen to hear women's voices, women's words. You can, and in the past couple of years where that's been more something nationwide, where people are hunting for. I don't think you have to really hunt for it here. Yeah. It's there if you want it. And Latunda came out, like I said, they came out with an album. They hadn't had an album out, and they came out with one, and it was, that thing rocks. It's
totally. Well,
beautiful.
I remember the feeling. There was early in the year, I reported on a show that was, I think it was all women. So definitely all women fronted, and possibly just all women, period. And I remember having to kind of make a decision as to whether I would say something about it in the article. Like, is this something that's newsworthy or not? And I decided not to bother. I just figured I'm just going to report on it like I report on everything else.
Right.
And so fine. But then I remembered, like, fast forward several months later, and the same thing happened again. And it only occurred to me after the fact that it was that had been the case. Like I realized that that there had been some sort of shift in me where I just gotten more and more used to it. Like because the fact remains that the music scene is like heavily tilted toward men. Right. And I am sure that if everyone felt like they could speak candidly, they would have story after story about various kinds of sexism going on, from just having to be taken seriously to something,
spend 5 minutes on Twitter and you'll read about it.
Yeah, I am sure.
Nationwide.
I'm 100% sure that that's true. And at the same time, like there is a way that has become very normal here that I think is really refreshing and really cool.
And people coming in, because in the beginning of the year, two of the shows that I loved were Lola Pistola and Shilpa Ray. Fronting, where Lola Pistola was there. It was a duo, right? Where Shilpa Ray was a full band,
right? Like technically speaking, the show that I described with Shy and Karen Meets are two. that would be a show where it would never have occurred to me to point out, hey, guess what? Right. That's not what was interesting about that show.
But if that is something
what was interesting about it was a great artist, a really interesting new band, and then this like crazy thing that blew my mind.
Yeah, and but it's also in terms of like when you think about like one of the things with State House, with they're bringing in acts from all over the world. Yeah, so that's another thing that New Haven is really blessed with, is that we're Cafe 9, State House, where all these different places, there's people coming in from everywhere, doing everything. There's men and women together, male fronted, female fronted. Yes. It's nice. It's nice to be somewhere where you don't have to think like, I haven't seen this or that in a while.
Right. And as somebody who, like, I'm one of those people who honestly believes that diversity among the band members contributes to diversity in the sound of the band. Like I think that's a real thing, and it should be. So for as a music fan, that's something for me to love because I like it when bands don't sound all the same. Like I like it when bands are coming from different perspectives, when they have different approaches to their instruments, different approaches to the way that they sing. And that's, I think that that's part of what contributes to the vitality of the scene is that, it's not just about being diverse because it's like the right thing to do, though of course it is the right thing to do, but it's also about having just more interesting music. And like that's that. Like the proof is in the product. And it's it's one of the reasons why this job continues to be super interesting is that I don't hear the same thing all the time. I always find some way that a group sounds different from the group that I heard last week.
Right. And I've seen, and now I think we were talking about this before, but like I saw, there's bands I followed right from not the very beginning, but close enough. Rhino's one of them.
Yeah.
The Write-Offs is another one. Dust Hat is another one. When I first reviewed Dust Hat, it was their second show.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them like a month ago, and I was like, whew.
Yeah.
I had to go up to Brendan and be like, you guys are just better every time I hear you.
Right.
Some of them have come out with new music. Some, more recently than like the Write-Offs just came out with new. I just wrote an article about it. Just came out with new music after like 2 years.
Yeah.
3 years, I believe. And you, that's another great thing about this is you see people change, you see a progression, and then you see things like I've been doing this for 2 years. I've been writing for the Independent for 2 years. I've been going to shows for 6 years. And then you have people who have been performing in the area for 20 years.
Right.
So you didn't get to see, I didn't, I don't think you didn't get to see these performers play when they first started, but you still see the changes over time.
Yeah, like even just over a couple of years, you see changes for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, the new acts, old acts, new, old, whatever, it's, what are you doing now? That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to tell people about is what are you doing now? And what are you doing next year?
Yeah.
What are you doing soon?
Totally.
Which we'll talk about too, right?
Yes. You want let's hear Latunda.
Yes, let's hear Latunda.
So
Everybody
this would be
Latunda.
Sundays off of the album. When did they put this? This is just a couple months old, right?
August.
Yes. Finally, my memory is working.
I have that written down.
That's a couple few, but it's a couple. All right. So this is Latunda with Sundays off of Factory Girls.
I'm so happy, you're so happy, let's
That was La Tunda with Sundays. And you're listening to Northern Remedy, the show dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future, here on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Brian Slattery. I'm the arts editor of the New Haven Independent, and with me is Karen Ponzio, reporter for the New Haven Independent. And we're rounding up our favorite shows of 2018 that we saw. And
some of them we wrote about, some of them we didn't.
Yeah. And that that also gives us a sense of like kind of, what's, as we've been talking about it, we've had it's funny because I wasn't even thinking this way, but themes have emerged as to like things that happened in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
There's more music with all women or women fronted bands. We have the opening of the State House and the way that it is woven itself into the fabric of New Haven's music scene. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, the emergence of the noise scene as sort of being all over the place in the city that is now. It's like musically they've always been all over the place.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Location.
That's the point.
They're everywhere, man.
But the other thing that we wanted to talk about is how there is like we both kind of sense like a flurry of activity at the end of the year, both of people putting together shows that felt kind of cumulative, people putting out projects that they had been working on for a while, and then people announcing that they were either working on things that were going to come out very soon, or it seemed like suddenly there are these like just a lot going on. So let's start with the.
There's a reason why I'm taking the next 2 weeks off.
Well, yes,
because
exactly. Exactly. There's a reason we're ready for vacation. It's been great.
Oh, listen, I am the luckiest. I am the luckiest. I love what I do, but I am exhausted. It was a lot the end of the year here, and it was for a good reason though, because of exactly what you said. Because people just. I did these interviews and people working on a lot and covering a lot and talking about not just a lot of people came out with stuff right in the past month or two.
Yes, right.
I mean, we just had in the past, I did the article about Sam Carlson and his new recording studio and what he's doing. And he came out with like projects for 12, I think we counted, was it like 12 some different acts, including 2 acts that two bands he's involved in, and he's working on his next solo album for next year. Right.
So like Laundry Day put out an EP, Ports of Spain put out a full album.
He's working on a full album.
Yes, he is working on a full album of his own stuff.
Of his own. He put out music for Sketch the Cataclysm. He remastered something for Sketch that I wrote about back in the summer, and he remastered 2 songs for him that just came out in the past couple of weeks. He's working with Xavier Serrano.
Right.
He did something for Witch Hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just Sam.
Fiction.
That's
Bang
just
Creek.
Sam Carlson.
That's just Sam.
Right. And then you covered the show, the Chris Bousquet show about his project called The Year of the Horse. So I'd like you to talk about that.
Yes. So Chris Bousquet also goes by American Elm. And Chris has been around the scene for a long time. Very lyrically kind of lush, poetic songs that he's written over the years. And so I reviewed him back. He came out with a single this year, which again, that show was talking about that Danny did on a Manic Monday. That was like his single release shows. And I also reviewed him at the singer-songwriter in the round thing at Best Video, and he would mention at the shows how he had these songs and he was going to do like a rock opera, and he would joke about it. And then what he ended up doing is he took these songs.
It was no joke.
It ended up not being a joke. It came to fruition because he called it a song cycle. And it was these songs that he had that he wrote at a very specific time in his life with a theme. And what he did is, as he would play them, he would think of different people, and he asked all of these people to play these songs, and every one of them said yes.
Yeah.
And these are all people that have been, pretty much have been around the scene for a while. So you have Sam Perduta from Ellison Jackson. You have Liz Galore, and you have the Sawtells. You have Paul Bell Busty of Mercy Choir. You have Ann Castellano. People that have been around and that know him and were like, yes. And they did a show where The Year of the Horse is the song cycle name. And there's also a song, the theme from The Year of the Horse. And they did he had everybody do a cover song for the first half from that era, that time frame.
Right.
So like the Sawtells did West End Girls, and Paul Bell Busty did She's Got The Look. No, it's that one that goes She's Got the Look, but the song's called The Look by Roxette. And yeah, just some great Ultravox. These songs were fantastic, and everybody's friends and everybody loves each other, and it was this warm, loving, and then these beautiful songs on a Friday night at Cafe 9. And a lot of people there were talking about, how it kind of like fed them. It was just this really, they helped Chris bring something to fruition. I mean, he couldn't stop smiling the whole night. He was so happy.
Yeah,
it was
I can
lovely.
Imagine, right?
It was lovely.
Like, what wouldn't you like about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was going anyway. I would have went anyway because these are, again, I write about, if you haven't caught the drift by now, a lot of the people I write about, I'm also friends with because I was in the scene before I started writing.
Right.
Too. So I would have gone to the show anyway. And writing about it, it was very moving. I mean, I was, he's around. I'm older than him, but he's around the same age. You hear about that time and some of those songs, and you're like, ugh. And then you hear the theme of what he's writing about, and about loss and love and sadness, and who doesn't feel that? I mean, that's not that's a constant. So, but you have people who are talking about coming out with kind of rejuvenated them, and they're coming out with singles, or they want to perform together again, and already you have like Jen, Ponybird, and Frank and Chris doing another show. They do a show every year together, which I reviewed one of them with Shandy Lawson. They're doing another one in a week. Yeah. So it's like it's one of those things where, again, like we talk like with the noise musicians, you get together and it's like, let's put on a show.
Yes. Exactly.
And it this enthusiasm and this things come to fruition that maybe I would say wouldn't have otherwise, but it's another fertile area for that. Sam Carlson with what he's doing, also the write-offs. So he mastered the write-offs, came out with a new record, and the write-offs played at Laundry Days opening show with Old Self, who also had a new record this year. And Laundry Day has more music, and the write-offs did 18 songs. Yes. So they're talking about coming out with their album they just came out with an EP. They're coming out with an album next year.
Yes.
So it's just this
right. And to loop all the way back, like that's Chesky also falls into this pattern where
exactly.
Like,
so we came full circle because we talked about him almost first. So
did it.
Shy's coming out. Yeah, we talked about Shy, and I talked to her the other night at open mic, and she was there talking about recording with Sam as well. I mean, it's just when I talked to Rhino, they're like, we got this album coming out in a couple months. They're like, we already have songs for the next one.
Right.
So it's just we're in this fertile, wonderful. There's no stagnation here. So you have bands that have been around for 20 years that are talking about new music, and you have bands that just came together in the past couple years, in the past couple months, this year, talking about new music. There's no excuse to say what's going on. It's constantly going.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. I feel like a few years into this job, I'm still playing catch up. There's when we first started and there hadn't been a lot of music coverage for a while, it really felt like catch up. Where we just thought we got to run around, we got to give a sense not just of what's going on, but what has been going on for a few years. And then there's a brief, beautiful moment where I felt like we didn't need to be catching people up on what has been going on anymore. It was like, okay, we have a good sense of like where the scene is at now and a little sense of its history. But it turns out that that's not as comfortable a position as I was hoping it was going to be. Because of course everybody just keeps moving and new people keep showing up, and people who've been around for a while keep doing new interesting things, and to some extent I'm catching up as much as ever.
it's also
just
timing.
in a more informed way.
Well, yeah, and it's also like timing. Like Chris mentioned,
Yeah.
he's like, you know, I could spend the money and the time and go in and record this album, or I can, you know, they recorded it. Scott Amori filmed it,
Mhm.
you know, so it's on Vimeo if you want to see the songs. He's like, you know, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way. What's easier? We talked at the
Yes.
first show. We were talking about, you know, some people don't have music recorded. Like when we were talking about Paul Bryant Hudson, and we're like, Paul,
Speaking of
can
which,
you get us some
oh my
music,
God.
please? Because we love you so much. And, you know, he performs and you see him and you're like, yes,
I know.
you know, and you don't
I
want to be
know.
like Paul, because everybody has their thing. Some people have the access, have the time,
Right.
have it. And some people are just, but that doesn't mean they're not playing.
So we are far and away not the only people who want Paul Brian Hudson to finally put things.
I'm not picking
down.
on you, Paul. I'm saying
I'm
it
gonna
because
pick on him.
I'm not picking
I'm
on
picking
him,
on you.
but I want it because I get it. Because I'm not, and again, not a musician. Trademark. Getting the shirts printed next year. Please come follow my Facebook page for your not a musician T-shirt. But yeah,
I just want to hear it when I'm not at. I want to hear it more than when I'm at a show of his. That's
Correct.
all.
we
I wanna hear it in
we
my
say it
car.
because we love.
Yes.
We speak of it because we love.
Yes.
But yeah, so
Exactly.
there's plenty of people who, you know, have been waiting. Like when Laundry Day came out with their music last year,
Mm-hmm.
that was an album. It was like 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
now they did. You know, when they recorded this one, they like recorded it all pretty much in like this like very short period of time. Where like we're putting this out.
Right. Right.
You know, Witch Hair was like that too. And Witch Hair is another band, you know, you really want to get out to see, and they came out and they're already working. You know, they're like, we're not gonna. They said this is our last show we're playing because we're going right back into the recording studio,
Cool.
right back
Yes.
in. You know, Dust Hat did something. They wanted a vinyl. They got there. They wanted it a certain way.
Right.
They wanted to record it so it came out and sounded a certain way on vinyl. They did it, and then they went out and played. It's really. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day again, and they're like, you know, do you really? One of the other questions I always get is, do you really like all those shows you go to? You really,
Yeah.
you haven't seen any bad shows? And I'm like, I really haven't.
Yes.
I haven't. I love it. I will probably always be, to some extent, a fangirl.
Yeah.
And I say
Right.
that with love. I don't say that in a derogatory sense. I say that in the
Mhm.
sense of I go into things and I'm excited to be there. And I'm
Yes.
excited to hear what somebody's doing, whether it's somebody I've known for 5 years or somebody I've never heard before.
Right.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here
same.
to
Same.
keep it going.
Yep.
And if I'm like, oh, I mean, I've been at shows where I'm tired. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Some of them
That
are really
too.
late. I've been exhausted.
too.
Friday night shows are tough. But what's the point in going there and being like, oh, you know, eye rolly and
Yeah.
jaded
right.
and
Right. Like, why would you go out with that attitude?
I
to
live in
begin
North
with?
Haven, you know what I mean? I'm 10 minutes from here. I come down, it's like,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Man,
Totally.
there's a lot.
That's a good note to go out on, isn't it? So what should we hear? Because we only have a couple minutes left. Should we hear the write-offs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the write-offs is new. It is. I wrote about them. Read the article. Listen to the music. Rock and roll. Yeah. People who hear them are like, that is rock and roll, and that is rock and roll.
So this is the write-offs with Fire in a Theater. And this has been Northern Remedy, the show dedicated to New Haven's music, past, present, and future. Thanks for coming on the show, Karen.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Super fun.
Yay.
Okay.
Is there a doctor in the house? Oh, and there was. Is there an exit here at all? Oh, there must be, but not near me. I've seen
was asked not to repeat any part of the performance. That night kept the crowd up on their feet. Read me the lines and I'll try it. Pop me some corn and I'll buy it.